destructive, intelligent and foolish, loving and hateful beings on earth. And we've come to have a significant effect, good or bad, on everything we touch. I'm Thane Maynard. Tune into the 90-Second Naturalist and find out how we're interacting with the natural world today.
Listen every weekday afternoon during the KSJE Evening News at 5:30. This program is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, who's expanding its services to offer low-cost blood screenings all year round, now offering walk-in convenience to get the blood tests you want when you want them. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, is available in Farmington at the hospital's laboratory and the Outpatient Diagnostic Center on 30th Street. Also in Aztec at San Juan Health Partners Family Medicine at 120 Llanos Street. With nearly 20 tests available, there's an option for everyone. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, a wellness service of San Juan Regional Medical Center. 8:38, Wednesday morning here on KSJE. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in, 90.9 FM. Streaming at KSJE.com, and good morning to our viewers watching on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. We are showing you a deceiving picture from Chicago, Illinois, where the temperature this morning is a minus 20 degrees. There is blue skies and the sun is out, but it is minus 20. The high temperature forecast for Chicago today is about minus 12, is about as hot and warm as it's going to get. Here in Farmington, our forecast is much different, of course. No polar vortex here. Mostly sunny skies today, tomorrow. Highs in the mid to upper 40s and overnight lows in the mid to lower 20s. Partly cloudy skies on Friday with a high of 51. Maybe a chance of rain developing beginning on Saturday for several days. Still just a slight chance, though, in the forecast. So I don't know if we'll see any of that here in Farmington. Maybe some of the mountain areas will get some rain or snow showers this weekend. Outside, it's 20 degrees in Farmington at the moment. Winds are out of the east at 7 miles per hour outside our studios here at San Juan College. Wednesday morning here on KSJE, and you're listening to the Scott Michlin Morning Program. My guest this morning from the Farmington Municipal School District. And again, thank you to our listeners at 90.9 FM, and good morning and welcome to our viewers who are watching us live this morning on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. Welcome aboard, everyone. It's good to have you along with us. My guest in this part of the program, Dr. Eugene Schmidt, is here with us, and to talk more about some school district-specific topics. And again, Dr. Schmidt, always appreciate your time and having you here. Thank you.
And thank you, Scott, and good morning to the Beacon on the Four Corners.
That's right. Thank you for joining us and staying with us this morning. And so the topic of weighted grades is on our list again this morning, and that's something that you and I have talked about before. I know it's something that gets parents and even some students riled up to a certain degree just to understand what that all means. And so help us to understand where we are with that at Farmington Schools.
Yes, and thank you for giving that opportunity, because it is a partnership with the college that we have this conversation, but is also a partnership with parents and students. So I'm going to get a little wonky on you for a minute, and I want the community to envision their high school transcript, where all the courses that they took are lined up, and then that goes into a file for 99 years.
Wow.
I keep people's transcripts in case they decide to go to college at a later date.
Okay.
But on that transcript, the school district awards a student an A+, a B+, a C+, a D+. And when you get that grade, you get bonus points on your transcript. And so many of us grew up with a transcript that an A equals 4 points.
Right.
And so I got a 4-point GPA. But in Farmington, we award a bonus if you get a plus. And that adds an extra 0.3. So literally, I could get a 4.3 GPA.
Right. Understood. I'm with you.
And so we're trying to understand the impact, because I had brought a recommendation to the school board last May-ish, in anticipation for the class of 2022, this year's freshman class. So the class of 2022 are my 9th graders, asking to change that, to take away the 0.3 bonus and just go back to a traditional 4.0 GPA. We have had some pushback or questions from the community, that have caused me to postpone the implementation of the 4.3 GPA for this year's freshman class. And so the question that we are trying to understand, I've actually convened a task force.
Okay.
And so I would say if you're a parent of a current 6th grader, 7th grader, 8th grader, and certainly 9th grader, I would encourage you to call me, because I've convened a committee that is studying the impact of my decision or my recommendation to the school board, thinking that if we haven't fully understood the implications of that, maybe it's a decision that I would reverse. So let me take you through a couple of scenarios.
Okay. And just for our viewers who are watching, Dr. Schmidt, we're showing a little bit of information on the screen right now about what exactly that we're talking about. So
yes, and so I appreciate that. The question that we're trying to understand is, we want our students to be the first ones chosen for a college or university of that student, that graduate's choice.
Okay.
Similarly, right. I would hope that when my kids graduate, that they would have the first choice of hire by an employer. And so the question we're trying to understand is that 4.3, is that more attractive to future employers, to colleges, to universities? And for what my parents from the community are telling me is, will that create the environment where our kids are the first ones chosen for scholarships? And certainly in that first segment, we talked about the poverty factor for our community.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure in the recommendations that I bring to the school board in our community that I am not denying through that decision an opportunity for a student to have won that scholarship, because suddenly the student has a 4.0 when maybe a student from another school system has a 4.3.
Right.
And so we're trying to understand the system and whether or not that will, again, help or not help a student in a scholarship search, get a job or get to the college. Conversely, I'm trying to understand in this investigation, in the work by the task force, I'm trying to understand, colleges often tell us that when kids apply, they take their transcript, name your university of choice. Oftentimes we're being told by the colleges that they ignore anything above a 4, that everything is recalculated back because some schools in the country don't have a GPA above a 4. And so we are trying to understand, is that important to the colleges or just something that we think is important locally? So let me go a different step. I'm also trying to understand in this task force work, where does motivation come from? Does motivation come from, golly, I got a A+, 4.3, or does that, you know what? I believe in hard work as a student. It is a personal or internal motivation that I want to work hard to get good grades. And so I'm trying to understand, and we'll be having conversations with our high school students, what is that motivates you to maybe do better than a classmate? Is it actually that plus? Or is it because, you know what, I understand the ethic of hard work, and I understand if I work hard, that reward is going to be that opportunity to get a job, go to college, get that scholarship. So there's a myriad of conversations that I am interested in having with our community as well as colleges and universities in trying to understand, and this is the ethic moment, what is most right in the conversation.
Sure. Well, and another question to you would be what's going on at other schools too? Is it all the same? It doesn't sound like it's all the same system. So some schools maybe have this 4.3 and other schools have 4.0s, and the colleges are maybe trying to make it more of an even playing field when they get an application from a student for a scholarship or to be considered for admission.
Yes, and that's the point I think that we're trying to understand, is the fact that many schools across the country and even in New Mexico have different grading systems, that some are weighted, some are not. And and what is it that the college or university tries to understand from that when it comes time for people to apply and to be accepted. And so certainly our conversation not only applies to New Mexico, but literally every school across the country, because our information suggests that our kids just a year ago applied for 128 different colleges and universities across the country. And so we begin to wonder, is it the GPA that they see in a transcript? Is it the body of work? You know, when I went to high school during my 4 years, what was that course of study that a college or university might be interested in? How many AP courses? How many international baccalaureate courses? How many college dual credit courses? So I think that a part of me tells, as I talk to other colleges and universities, is that they're interested in the body of work. And also interestingly, in that first segment we talked about contributing to the community. One of the things that we're learning is, are kids engaged in their community through events like participating in Coach for Kids events or fundraisers that try to better their neighbors? And so there's a bigger question that is beyond Farmington. Our kids are competing against kids from the world. And so in trying to understand a weighted grade, it really is not just important to Farmington, but what will happen with the kids that my kids will be competing against in the future.
Sure. And I imagine for some parents, though, it is a change, a proposed change, and that makes them a little concerned, because if it makes their child less competitive with colleges or universities, they're concerned about that, even if that's not the case. But the perception may be that it is.
Yes, and so it becomes even more complicated. And I'll take you through two scenarios. We have students who, in order to benefit from the weighted grade, and I think the rigorous course of study, take a lot of advanced placement courses in high school. If you get an A on an advanced placement course in one of our high schools, that gets you a weighted grade of a 5, even higher than a 4.3.
Right.
And we're also having that conversation with the college, because we want our students taking courses over here, courses that are beyond what we're able to offer. For example, math courses. San Juan College has been very good about providing dual credit math courses, science, engineering, cybersecurity, kinds of things that we would consider advanced, that student gets a weighted grade of a 5. And so suddenly it becomes possible to get a GPA that's even higher than a 4.3. So we're trying to understand, what does that mean? In the end of the day, when I have my transcript and I'm sending it off to a college or university, what does that mean in terms of making our Farmington graduates more attractive? As, you know, choose me first, give me the scholarship first. And so we're trying to understand that.
Sure. And I would hope that most colleges and universities are looking at your students and all students, not just as a number, but as their body of work on their application, or what they've accomplished in their school careers thus far. And I would hope that I'm not looking through rose-colored glasses to think that that's how things work these days.
Yes, and so I'm going to share a compliment to our community from New Mexico State University. I was on the phone yesterday talking to the dean of the engineering department. And again, to reflect back upon the power of partnerships, we see our Farmington grads going to San Juan College to get an AA degree engineering pathway that then sends them, or enables them, to go off to New Mexico State. And it is a partnership that is so powerful that New Mexico State wants to expand that. And so that was the conversation. So what could that look like? And what we're finding is that, and this is what the dean shared, he said that Farmington schools, and I'm going to include San Juan College, are the hidden gem of New Mexico. And so that's quite a compliment when somebody from Las Cruces is talking about the power of the Farmington and San Juan College partnership. And so, and because, or maybe he knew that I'd once been superintendent at Los Alamos. He said, and Farmington kids, he said, are equal to or better than the kids that come from Los Alamos. And so it's a real compliment to the kids who have careers for chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and what other engineering things are out there. But New Mexico State values San Juan College as a partner and is appreciative of the foundation that we build on those kids as they come through. So
Very
again,
good.
somewhere in that conversation is, what does that A+ mean?
Right, exactly. Well, and this is something that for future study and future programs, I think, to talk about this. So right now, your recommendation has kind of been put on hold. Is that a correct observation?
Yes, a great phrase. Partially.
Okay.
We are continuing to award a 5 for kids who are taking classes as dual credit for advanced courses here at the college. For the students back in PV, Farmington, Rosinante, those students will continue to get the plus because I've put a postponement, I'll even use the word moratorium, on the implementation of that pending the results of this study that will probably take us through May, maybe even into June of this year.
But some news maybe by summer.
Yes.
About where we're going.
Yeah, I've got to do something or undo something probably by summer.
Okay. That's on your list. Very good, Dr. Schmidt. Before we run out of time this morning, I do want to ask you briefly about the legislative session that is now underway in Santa Fe. We have a 60-day session this year, a surplus at the State House, and so lots of proposals. I think a lot of focus on education because of that lawsuit that was filed and the judge's ruling from last fall, if I remember correctly, about coming up with a way to fund education in our state. So with that huge intro, what are you watching for from Santa Fe?
Well, certainly there's a lot going on. So I'm going to try and go three-dimensional on you. The first is something called the rocket docket. You're going to hear some conversation. One of the rocket docket bills approved by the House and the Senate yesterday was a bill that allows teachers to be absent up to 10 days before their evaluations become effective.
Okay, I see.
And last session, there was a whole conversation, should that be 3, should that be 5, should that be none at all? And so this will eliminate any confusion. Teachers, by contract in our district, were allowed 10. And so the law, in effect, is becoming more reflective of what Farmington already allows. And so rocket docket for education bill in terms of teacher absences, I'm very good with that.
Okay.
Let's go to the Yazzie and the Zuni cases. And then that's what you referred to. There's some court case action that has demanded that the legislature do something by April 15th.
For funding.
For funding. And so you're going to see a lot of bills that introduce culture and biliteracy in additional fundings for schools, or special emphasis, make sure that students who fall into that demographic group will receive additional educational support. So be watching for biliteracy. And then finally, the one that I think you want me to get to, and that's Senate Bill 1. And Senate Bill 1 is on the floor, and that is for additional salaries for teachers is one of the factors that we're watching with interest. Farmington a year ago tried to champion to be the first to 40.
Right.
And so this bill actually says that. Let's be the first to 40,000 of our surrounding states as beginning teacher salaries. So we're very interested whether it's 40 or 45,000. We want teachers treated as professionals. And so we want to see that level 1, level 2 salaries go up. And I think in combination, other school support staff would also receive a wage increase of some. Long overdue, we need to be competitive. So that's one of the things. The other thing that Senate Bill 1 talks about that people should begin tracking is it's looking at extending the school year. I'm not sure if that's going to be 3 days or 10 days, but the intent of adding days is to create more professional development opportunities for teachers. So the kids would still be 180, but teachers might be 190.
I see.
And so we're trying to understand the impact of that. I welcome that because teacher training, we do these early release Mondays. If the state were to fund additional days, it might give me an opportunity to rethink, the need for an early release Monday. So be watching that legislation, Senate Bill 1.
Okay, very good. And with that, and the other issue I wanted to ask you about too was this funding thing. We'll go back a couple of steps here, because that was specifically pointing out minority students and maybe special education students, and that group that the court said maybe isn't getting the best shake from the public education system.
Yes, I would call a lot of what we would call second language students whose language, English, is not their home language. A whole new funding stream is going to be coming in for kids who are learning English as their second language. And part of that, again, I'll go back to Senate Bill 1, there is language in that bill that says teachers for elementary who are hired in the future, I would call it the teachers of school year 19 and 2020, the one coming up.
Right.
Any new hires would have to have a Teachers of English Second Language endorsement, a TESOL endorsement. So that is a conversation that we'll be having with colleges and universities. In a typical year, Farmington hires somewhere between 70 and 100 teachers. And if all elementary teachers of the future have to have this TESOL endorsement, that's going to require us to really fast track our friendships with the colleges and universities. But very specifically, students who are learning English need other kinds of strategies that many teachers may not be equipped with currently. And certainly, would love to have, Principal Braff join us in this moment and have a thought on that. But we need to strengthen the way we teach as intervention strategies. And the Senate Bill 1, the Yazzie and the Zuni cases are demanding that schools do something to empower teachers with the ability to be more demonstrative, be more, and I don't want to call it slow down the language learning process, but be more creative in the ways that we deal with kids individually. So probably in the future, it may well be that every kid has their own individual education plan. Now, the law isn't calling for that, but it's certainly suggesting that every kid needs to be on their own pathway.
Moving that direction, perhaps. So we'll see what happens. All right. Lots to think about and lots to watch from Santa Fe. Dr. Schmidt, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you, Scott.
Always appreciate it. Dr. Eugene Schmidt, Superintendent of Schools with the Farmington School District, my guest here on KSJE. Wednesday morning here on KSJE, and as we do every Wednesday, time to take a trip over to the Encouragement Lab. That is where Communications Professor Dr. Mike Hadabaugh is, and he's joining us live. Good morning.
Hello.
Good to have you here, Dr. Hadabaugh. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right.
Finally.
Things in the lab are percolating this morning?
Oh, yeah. We finally got the fumes out of here so I could breathe again. And, I've had a crud for a month, so it's mostly gone now. Okay.
Well, we're glad to hear that. It's good to see you and hear you. And thank you for the hello message behind you. Thank you very much for that. If folks are watching, they can see that, of course. And we're streaming live, of course, on the KSJE Facebook page and YouTube channel. So today, we are talking about political prepping, you were telling me before we started, huh?
Wow. Can you believe that?
Really?
There was already, people are announcing their candidacy for the presidency now that we're 2 years out.
Oh, my.
And so it's time. And here's the deal. The work that I want you to do, and this is work, this is therapy. It's the old, funny enough, even Stuart Smalley became a politician, right?
Right.
A senator. But, I want you to have that encouragement. You're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people just like you, so you can survive this next political season.
Okay. But it's going to be a long one, right? I mean, we're already, as you mentioned, we're already starting it. We're
in the bunkers. Yeah, so that's why I'm calling
less than
it
2 years out.
Prepping.
Okay.
So it's like, everybody knows people that are prepping for the end of times. These rich people are buying bunkers out in the middle of nowhere and stocking it so they can go there if something crazy happens. Well, we're going to be politically prepping today. And here's what I mean by that is, that your crazy uncle or silly aunt or somebody in your family or friends the next year is going to say something really stupid about politics or something that makes you just furious, right?
Right.
It's going to happen. So plan on it. Be a prepper. Be ready for it. And I'm being proactive. I'm going to go on my Facebook page this week and I'm going to say, look, I promise to be your friend no matter how silly your politics get the next couple of years. Because it's going to get silly.
Okay. And when you say silly, do you mean crazy? Or do you mean silly?
Not violent. But you know, there's a lot of people predicting violence this cycle. And that's just, folks, there's nothing going on in our culture that's worth violence. Now, if you agree otherwise, then I can't help you very much. But there is nothing going on that deserves violence in our local culture anyway.
Sure, right.
We're hyped up about some things that really don't affect many of us in our day-to-day lives. That's just the reality. Now, to those that it does, it does. But I'm saying for the vast majority of us that get all upset about this, we're arguing about stuff we don't have control over. So it's time to prep your friends, prep your own heart, prep your own mind, and say, you know what, I'm going to choose to be somebody's relationship over, my beliefs. We had a show about that a few weeks ago.
We did. That's true. But it's really important. You can still be friends with someone even if you don't agree with them politically. I mean, that has to be the bottom line, right?
Well, and we should. I mean, if you've got political, I always think of Mary Matlin and James Carville.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're in opposite ends of the political spectrum. At least they were at one point. You know, what's funny is politics has a way of taking people that 25 years ago seemed to be in the political opposite end of the spectrum, and now their beliefs are pretty in the middle compared to what we're dealing with right now in politics. It's gotten out here. And realize that the vast majority of the arguments taking place on these extremes, when the reality is most of our friends, and by the way, a lot of your friends will vote the other way than you, but it doesn't mean that they're as radical as people are on their party or your party. Because trust me, regardless of your color, red, blue, green, yellow, pink, whatever color your party is, you got people in it that are crazy.
Well, that's true.
That's true. So that's just truth. So when you point and say, look at all those crazy people you're voting for, guess what? You're voting for some crazy people too. Because anymore, you got to be crazy to run for politics.
Well, that's true. And it kind of brings up the other point about this topic in that it seems like some people are just really set in their political vision and they can't even listen to the other point of view from the other side of the aisle. And that really drives me a little bit crazy.
Yeah, and there's no perspective of, let me try to think why you might believe this way. Instead, it's let's just belittle you for believing that way. Let's make fun of you for believing that way. Let's attack you at a restaurant because you believe a certain way. Let's tell people you should be kicked out of a church for believing a certain way. I mean, that's what we've got. And by the way, those last two were two different sides of the political spectrum that's going on the past 6 months. And that's what I'm talking about is we're kind of losing our mind, and we need to realize that we're all in this together. And really, when you say something extreme about a party or a candidate, realize that you've got friends that are going to vote for them regardless.
True.
Every day I see that from last election is I want to say, you know what? You need to realize that a lot of people voted for the other candidate because they didn't like yours so much. And that was both sides of this thing.
That's true. That's very true. And Dr. Hadaba, is there that magic saying that we can tell someone if they're really going off on politics to try to redirect the conversation or something?
I don't know about magic, but just realize that it's not worth the emotional capital you're going to spend the next 2 years. So just don't go there. I did that the last couple elections, and my goodness, I've found a piece that I never thought I'd find about politics. I'm still voting. I still have some beliefs about things, but you know what? It's just not worth the angst that I see people putting into it. So I'll be sitting on that sideline, and I'll wave at your parade as you march by, but don't get mad at me for not joining it. Realize that your passion is your passion. Don't expect it to be your friends or your families or anybody else's, because I care more about you as a person than I care about your politics. And sometimes I have to care about you despite your politics. And you make it harder and harder and harder to do that. Some people do. Not you, Scott.
Right, thank you. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. Right.
People that I know that are just so adamant about it.
That is very true. Well, that will be some good advice, and I'm asking you to repeat that over the next year and 8 months or so, Dr. Hadabas. So keep those notes handy if you wouldn't mind.
I'll get my political camouflage ready for a prep world.
Yes, exactly. All right. Dr. Mike Hadabas, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much. That is Dr. Mike Hadabas. He's joining us from the Encouragement Lab every Wednesday right here on KSJE Farmington.